Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we are talking about Erik ten Hag. And the reason we are talking about Ten Hag is because I think it's important to try and understand kind of what your manager is trying to do, why he's trying to do it, how he's trying to do it. We spoke about it not that long ago with rest defense, for example. That's something which Erik ten Hag speaks about a lot, so I tried to kind of translate that to you guys. Now we've got another topic to talk about. Because when Erik ten Hag came into the club, something which I kind of preached about was the possession football he would bring, the control he would bring. You know, kind of a little bit Manchester City-esque, although not to the same extent. But we were talking about possession football, and we all thought, I think, as a fan base, that that would be the case. But then just a couple of days ago, Erik ten Hag said this. We really looked into the history of Manchester United, and we really looked also into the qualities of our players. And then you can say, so what do we want to be? That is, we want to be the best transition team in the world. We want to surprise. Now, first of all, I really like that from Erik ten Hag. It's great that he's kind of taking principles from the history of the club, the foundation of the club, the personality of the club, if you like. Sir Alex Ferguson played a lot of transitional football, so that's great to see. Erik ten Hag wants this side to be one of the most transitioning teams in the world, and the best transitioning team, in fact. However, at the same time, after the Borussia Dortmund game the other day, he's saying this. That's not us in terms of the performance. We have to keep control. Keep responsibility on the ball. So how does that make sense? Because what he's saying to you guys, and what you are reading in these interviews, reading it on Twitter or wherever it might be, is he's saying we want to be the best transitional team in the world, but we also want to control the football. How does that make sense? Has he lost the plot? So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, JerseyFifa.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFifa for 10% off when you order. Now, don't worry, Erik ten Hag has not lost the plot. He is still a very, very good manager, and in fact, in my opinion, an elite manager, one of the best in the world. However, he's clearly talking about something a little bit different to what we're used to in football over the past couple of decades. He's talking about transitioning football whilst maintaining possession. So today I want to try and tell you how and why Manchester United can do that. Today we will start off with the why. Why would you want to keep possession but also play transitional football? Well, it's actually pretty obvious if you think about it. The reason that you would want to keep possession and dominate possession of the football is because if you have the ball, the opposition don't. So you have way more chance of scoring a goal than what the opposition do. Now, why would you want to play transitioning football? What's the benefit of that? Well, the idea behind the kind of traditional transition or counter-attack, if you like, is that the opposition have a lot of players pushed forward high up the pitch, so if you can transition or counter-attack, they don't have too many defenders back, so there's more space to attack. So that is why you would want to do these two things. You would want to have possession of the ball because it stops the opposition from scoring, it gives you control and territory in the game. But you would also want to play transitioning football because it means the opposition are open. The question is, how do you do both? Well, the way you do both of these two things is by doing what I call artificial transitions or manufactured transitions. It's a term I've used on the channel before but never really spoken about it properly. But this is what I think Erik ten Hag might be trying to do at Manchester United. How do you do it? Well, the first thing you do is you really take your time on the ball. That's a key principle here. You are taking your time on the ball, taking several touches, not moving the ball about too quickly initially. What is the benefit of this? It gives you possession of the ball. Possession 9 times out of 10 equals control if you do it in the right way. So by taking time on the ball, Erik ten Hag's side should have the control which the manager wants. However, you also need to turn this into transition. So how do you do that? Well, to do that, you take your time on the ball, you really slow it down, because what this does is it draws the opposition out and forces them to press you. It's something which Brighton do very, very well. If you take your time on the ball, the opposition have to come out towards you, right? Because I've said it a few times recently, you can't just be left there standing with the ball for 90 minutes. That's not how football works. So if, for example, let's say Lisandro Martinez is taking his time on the ball, taking several touches, kind of controlling possession for Manchester United, what it does is it draws the opposition out and they try and press you. They try and do something like this, they move high up the pitch, try and win the ball back nice and high. Now what this does is because they're pressing high, pushing players forward to press, it means that they have less players at the back, which now gives you the element or the benefit of a transition. So you've got controlled possession, but also you've managed to weaken their defensive line because they've pushed players further forward to the press. So that's kind of what you do, why you do it, and to an extent how you do it. But now I want to take a look at an example, because whilst this might be something which Erik ten Hag is talking about this season, kind of looking back through the season, it's something which was actually already there last year, maybe not to the level which Ten Hag wants, but we did see examples of these artificial transitions. Now, one of my favourite goals from last season was actually an artificial transition, and it came very early in the season against Arsenal. Early on in Erik ten Hag's reign, one of the most important results last season. So we can see effects of it here. Here, Christian Eriksen has dropped deep and is taking his time on the ball. He's not in a rush. What does this have the effect of doing? Well, by taking his time, Manchester United are controlling possession. We can see quite clearly here, this is a controlled possession phase for Manchester United. But because he's taking his time, Arsenal think, I reckon we can go nick this ball. I reckon we can go tackle nice and high, win the ball and be in a dangerous position. So we can see here, 6 Arsenal players are being committed just a little bit higher. So now what you've done is you've kind of taken a possession phase into a situation where you've drawn the opposition onto you. Now the effect of that is just 1 or sometimes 2 or 3 quick passes through the team takes out a lot of the opposition's defenders, which now means that you've gone from a situation where you were deep in a controlled possession phase to suddenly 1 pass through the lines, and you are now in a transitioning phase because the opposition's defence is opened up and you have runners all over the pitch. On this occasion, it's Bruno Fernandes picking the ball up in the pocket. He's got Sancho, Rashford and Antony as runners. And like I said, this ends up in a really good goal. Bruno Fernandes moves the ball wide to Jadon Sancho. We can see that there are still 2 runners, Antony at the bottom of the screen here and Marcus Rashford in the middle. As it plays out, Sancho gets the ball, gives the ball to Marcus Rashford. We can see that Arsenal's defence has been pulled all over the place, and it leads to Antony in a lot of room, who puts the ball in the back of the net with a really good finish on his debut. But that was an artificial transition, because it started with Manchester United having the ball in a slow phase in deep areas, but they quickly turned it almost into a counter-attack. That is exactly why Erik ten Hag wants to play in this way, because it's so dangerous. I guess the question from here is, how can Manchester United do this on a more regular basis, and how can they become the best in the world at being controlled but also transitional like Erik ten Hag was speaking about? Well, again, the key is going to be certain players which have been signed at the club. For example, Lisandro Martinez, brought in last summer, is an incredibly technical player. A player who is comfortable under pressure on the ball, even in deep positions. Also, Andre Onana in goal, who is genuinely brilliant under pressure. I've said it several times over the past month. In my opinion, the best ball-playing goalkeeper in the world. But what I really like about him is his ability to absorb pressure. You've also got something similar in Luke Shaw as well, a very technically secure player who is very good under pressure. Now, the right-hand side doesn't have the same attributes, and for today we won't be talking about that. Perhaps that's a problem for another day, although a lot of you didn't like it when I was speaking about it recently. So let's focus on the left-hand side and the positive for today. What Manchester United need to do once they're in these situations and in these positions is, again, be patient and comfortable on the ball, and take their time, draw the opposition onto them. We saw Onana doing this to an extent against Real Madrid the other day. I don't know if you watched that video, but something we highlighted was his willingness to take time on the ball, to draw someone towards him, which opens up space for someone else. That needs to be the idea with Luke Shaw, Lisandro Martinez, and also Onana in goal. That needs to be the game plan. Try and draw the opposition onto you, and then play through them. Because if Onana takes his time here, it means that, for example, this player comes towards him. As a result of this player coming towards him, someone else is now free. If Onana had rushed the situation, they could have just marked Lisandro Martinez. But by Onana taking his time on the ball, it draws the player out, which now means you can go to Lisandro Martinez. If he now takes his time on the ball also, it drags another player out. Someone has to come towards him, because you can't just let a player stand there on the ball. So it drags someone out. Maybe Lisandro Martinez can then play the ball to Casemiro. Now, if United then quickly speed the play up, you have players in brilliant positions. And in Mason Mount, signed this summer for a pretty obvious reason, and also Bruno Fernandes, you have 2 players who are incredible at receiving the ball on the half turn, particularly in the case of Mason Mount. And now you think about it, the more it makes sense as a signing. Because if from Casemiro you can get the ball to Mason Mount on the half turn, you've now turned a situation where United were kind of chilling, taking their time, slowing the play down from the goal kick, drawing the opposition onto them, baiting players out to quickly, suddenly, 2 passes and you're in a really dangerous position. And then with someone like Marcus Rashford as a runner from out wide, but also Rasmus Højlund, who at the time of recording hasn't been confirmed, but it looks very, very close. You now can see the transitioning threats. So in these deep areas, you've got these technical players who control possession and draw the opposition onto them. Then in the middle phase, you've got these brilliant transitioning footballers, and then these brilliant outlets in the attacking setup. This is what Erik ten Hag is trying to do in terms of being a controlled team, but also a brilliant transitioning one. And like I said, Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes feeding Højlund and Rashford on the counter could be terrifying. This is also something that if United want to, they can also do in the middle third in more sustained possession. They can control possession around the halfway line in the middle third or the second phase, but still turn it into transitioning situations. But I do think they need work in this department. Players like Casemiro, Wan-Bissaka and Raphael Varane aren't actually suited to this, but I still think it is what Erik ten Hag is going for. And it's why we might see someone like Dalot come into the team at right back, just for his technical security on the ball. But in terms of how United theoretically could do this, and this is just an idea rather than something which is happening too much at the moment, is by again taking your time on the ball in these areas. If you are Luke Shaw, you don't have to rush and play this ball forward. This ball doesn't have to be pinged. The same with Casemiro. The ball doesn't have to go long quick. If you take your time on the ball, it draws players in towards you, and that is always going to open up space for someone else. Particularly when we've seen Lisandro Martinez stepping into midfield in pre-season, this could really work. Because now if this player is drawn out to Luke Shaw, Lisandro Martinez now receives the ball. If he also takes his time, we can see the potential for an overload here. Because if this player suddenly starts getting drawn out here to Lisandro Martinez, who is taking his time on the ball, we can see that Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes can quickly get themselves either side of this deeper midfielder. And this is where you're now turning it once again into a quick transitioning situation. Because if you can get the ball to Mason Mount, who once again is brilliant on the half turn, then turning and carrying the ball forward and driving at the opposition, and Højlund's going to make a run into this area, and Bruno Fernandes is going to make a run, and Rashford from out to in, it can quickly become a transitioning situation once again. Now again, the key behind this is drawing the opposition onto you, because whilst Luke Shaw is taking his time on the ball here, not only is the winger going to get dragged out by that, but naturally the rest of the team do, because you have to defend as a unit. This is why it works so well. Like I said, I think this is something which United need to work on. I think with the signing of Onana in goal, they'll be really good at it from the first phase, and I think we'll see United scoring goals in this way. I think they need improvement in the middle phase, because at times some of these players rush the ball forward a bit too much. Casemiro, Raphael Varane, Lisandro Martinez need to be patient on the ball and kind of draw players in before releasing it. But once again, if they do it, you can draw players out of position, and that is when it turns into a transitioning situation, because suddenly, once again, the opposition are low on defenders in these defensive areas. You've got runners, different outlets from all over the pitch, Antony, Rasmus Højlund, Marcus Rashford. This is what Erik ten Hag is trying to do, and hopefully that gives you guys a bit of a better understanding, because I completely understand why people might be confused by these quotes, because in kind of traditionally in football, it doesn't make sense to be a good transitioning team, but also a team which controls the ball and dominates possession. But this is actually a way in which Erik ten Hag could do it. And I think it might be what he's trying to do moving forward and what he's trying to build with this team. Like I said, it needs work, it isn't perfect, this is just an idea and kind of my interpretation of things. But if this is the way that Manchester United are heading, then it's quite promising. I still think they need upgrades in certain areas. For example, it doesn't suit Wan-Bissaka at right back. This isn't his style of football, kind of drawing pressure onto him and then playing a good pass. He isn't very good at that. So United will still need work on it. But if it does work, boy oh boy, it could really work. So in terms of moving forward, that's all we can talk about for now, because now we just need to actually see whether the team does it. We've seen the quotes from Erik ten Hag, we now have a rough idea or certainly an interpretation of what he wants to do. Now we have to wait and see how it unfolds. But the signings look good, the friendlies kind of pointing to this happening as well. So that's where we're going to leave it for today's video. So thank you guys for watching, I hope you have enjoyed it, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.